let's start with when OU's defense is on the field and when Baylor's offense is on the field. Ted, what are you watching for?
It's all about the run game, man. It's all about the run game. They're, they do a lot more window dressing with it, I feel, this year than they did previously. They've always had some there, but I feel like it was a little bit more what you see is what you get previously. But now they're window dressing it with a ton of shifts and motions, unbalanced, trips into the boundary. They run it out of shotgun. They run it out of pistol. They run it out of quarterback under center. They seem to be right-handed when they run it, and I don't know, the OU staff has a lot more data on that. That's just kind of me, not really tracking it. It just feels like it's a little more right-handed for them. But, they build boots and everything off of it. The key is stopping the run and getting them into 3rd and long. I mean, that's it.
So it's interesting that you say it's right-handed, because as I watch Blake Shapen now, everything that they do, and full disclosure, this is quite possibly my favorite offense in all of college football, because it is all based on my favorite play in football, outside zone. Everything that they do in Jeff Grimes' system is built off that play. And they are starting to run outside zone with Richard Reese at a higher level. And that offensive line starting to play some better football. They're disappointing for me early in the season as I really dove into them this week. But Shapen likes throwing on the move, going left.
Yeah. Yeah, their boot stuff is always away.
Yeah, which is interesting, because you would think sometimes you would want to boot him out where he's rolling right and feeling more comfortable, but he appears to be, it's just a random observation, he appears to be more comfortable throwing it on the move in the boot game when he's going left, which is, I mean, just an observation.
Yeah, no, that's definitely right. And they do some things. So they run like when they're in shotgun and they give the stretch look and they'll do it away from the tight end. They do this little pivot play where it's like just a quick boot. The tight end, gives the fake reach, like, oh, I just couldn't quite cut you off. And then he just pivots and Shapen just like sidearms it after he gives the fake.
And they do it quite a bit, and they've been doing it more as the season has progressed. To me, it's almost just like a run in a weird way.
It's like a shovel pass or something almost, but yeah, that's interesting. That's tough. You just got to stay, like you always say, they're trying to, that cutback is critical. And if you're worried about that little pivot play right there, it's hard to really play that cutback physical and press it. I think one of the things that I thought was really interesting is they like to run stretch on 3rd and long if you're pressuring, because number one, you're thinking you're going to, kind of sit back. We're going to defend the chains. We may bring some pressure, try and get it out of the quarterback's hand early, but guys that are blitzing, especially from depth, are a lot less gap secure, and especially against stretch, you could really cut some of those guys off. And they had some success doing some of that against Tech. 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. Tech was bringing some inside pressures, and they would stretch it and crease them and pick up the first down. So I thought that was interesting. I don't know. I'd like to see what you think, but to me, the tight ends, blocking, just okay. 9 is better than 89, but I don't think they're great, and really not good in pass protection.
Ben Sims is a guy who he's number 8. Ben Sims is a guy, big, athletic guy, all Big 12 type guy, preseason all Big 12. Braden Willis is a better tight end.
Mm-hmm.
Like all around.
I said 9. I think I'm thinking of 8. I think
it's 8. It's 8.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I have not been overly impressed with what he has done as a complete tight end this year. And now watch us say that, and he goes off for like 120 and 2 touchdowns, and we'll look like idiots. But I'm
talking about them more as blockers. That's because that's really they're going to run the hell out of the ball, and both those tight ends are going to be out there a lot. I think that we can beat them off the edge. Our guys can handle them. The pass game is going to be secondary, and we've obviously got to lock those guys up. But I think we should be able to have some success with those guys.
Yeah, I think the, kind of an in the weeds type thing, and you talk about this quite a bit, when you're playing a stretch team, when you're playing a wide zone team, the guys on the backside of the defense have to be extremely disciplined, because the whole concept for that play is to stretch the front side, cut off the backside, and run in the alley in between those. And you cannot over pursue on the backside. You cannot get too caught up in sprinting to the ball. You have to take really good angles on the backside and fit in your gap. Like, this is the most disciplined they will have to have been all season long against an opponent's running game. And that includes Texas and Bijan Robinson and everything he brings, because every gap is in play, which is why I love the outside zone concept so much. It gets guys running. It creates a ton of variables. And then the back gets to go be an athlete and use his vision and use his talent. The guys on the backside of this defense cannot get too caught up in flying and go and make a play. They have to stay disciplined and stay in their gap. There cannot be big creases, because they're just getting too antsy and flying over the top, Ted.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how they play it. Some teams play it a little bit differently. Here's something that we did whenever I was in the NFL with Detroit, and you had to have some of the right guys to do it. But believe it or not, we actually had a really good defense. When we played outside zone teams, we would tell our 3 to just get reached, just allow it, and just come straight up the field. The front side backer plays it normal, and the backside backer can now overlap instead of everyone like fighting and turning and running. It almost eliminates the cutback right away, and everyone can still run front side. I'll be interested to see like how they, and we'll know right away like how they're going to fit some things and what exactly they're going to do. But yeah, you're right. The backside is critical. And, one of the things Venables did say is Laulu, he thinks, has come a long way. And, we talked about him in the broadcast. He needs to have a really good day on the backside, staying square, using his length, being patient. They're going to get you with some of the cutback stuff, some of the boot stuff. But, there's a really fine line between being methodical, staying square, being in a good position, and just being a little late. I mean, there's not much room for error there. He's got to have a really good day.
Yeah, and also like Shapen's a good athlete. We've seen, we saw the damage Adrian Martinez. Now, he's not that type of runner, right? He doesn't have that type of speed like Martinez has got, but we saw Duggan make some big plays in the football game with his legs. Blake Shapen is more than capable of extending drives with his legs. And we've seen this defense struggle with that at times. That play that I loved, how upset BV was at the Decker scramble. Like, he was the only person I know that was more upset about it than you. It was great to hear him talk about it. You could just see the disgust on his face.
It's the easiest thing ever. That's the easiest play ever, when 2 backers having vice like that. But I actually think Shapen and Deckers, as far as scrambling, are pretty comparable, don't you?
Yeah, I think Shapen's a better passer. I think he's got more arm talent. I think he's more accurate. But you mentioned, and this is something that OU fans, prepare yourselves. Baylor's going to go for it on 4th down a lot. It's what they've been doing for 2 seasons. Now, and so you mentioned them sneaking some runs and those types of plays in 3rd and long where you just go, really?
Yeah.
It's because they're going for it. And they'll go for it on 4th and 5, 4th and 6. Like they'll roll the dice a little bit. And I'm sure that they got some sheet that they're following. But
well, some of that was against Tech, and Tech was bringing crossfire, which is about as bad as it gets against stretch. So I think that's probably part of why they were doing it too, is, some inside crossfire blitzes, and they hit them on it a couple of times. It was impressive. But you're right. Yeah, 4th down you're defending 4 plays.
Yeah, which you have to change your mentality defensively in this game. Like you can't think, oh, we got him in 4th and 3. I can relax. Let's jog off the field. Like that's not how this game is going to play out, which they know that going into the game. So you expect them to be ready for it just from a mental approach to the football
What's interesting is they're saying the same thing about us,
Yeah.
Yeah. They're saying the same thing about us. We may break the record for 4th downs attempts in this game.
I hope. You got anything else? OU's defense, Baylor's offense?
The only other thing I was going to say about Shapen is I think I've heard you say this before, some YOLO throws.
Yeah. Why not? Let's throw it up, see what happens to Gavin Holmes or Monterey Baldwin. Let's let him go get it.
He'll toss it down the field under pressure, and he does a good job of putting it into some areas where usually only his guy can make the play. But like I said, the big thing about Baylor right now is they did not have their running game going for most of this season like it was last year. And the last 2 games, they have really gotten Reese going. 180, I think, against Tech, and 140, 150 in the game before that. They're starting to get it rolling. Now, I think that defensively we're quite a bit better than what you saw against Tech, and should be able to do a better job. But still, like that's the key. You have to stop the run against Baylor and make Shapen predictable. If you don't do that, you're going to be facing 4th and shorts all day long.
Yeah, and my hope after this game is to say, hey, that Iowa State game, the way they shut down the run, the way they played defensively, like that was a turning point for this defense. That's my hope, is that's what we're talking about after another solid performance against Baylor. But it's a big challenge, man. It is a big challenge. Okay, let's talk about OU's offense versus Baylor's defense. Ted, you and I have been big fans of what Baylor has done defensively these last couple seasons. First and foremost, I'm going to stress this. They don't have Petrie or Bernard anymore. This is still a very violent group on the defensive side for Baylor. I think, and I know Iowa State's defense is what it is, right? That's a really good group. Statistically, they're the best in the conference. Texas had a ton of talent on the field. I have not watched a team this season that's made me go, ooh, more than this Baylor group. They will knock the absolute hell out of you.
And what's crazy is it's been that way since Rule showed up.
Yeah.
They are physical, man. Yeah.
Yeah. So just keep that in mind. There are going to be some pads popping in this game. But I think the most important thing for Oklahoma offensively is the O-line communication in this game. Because Dave Aranda is a defensive wizard, right? He's in the same category as Brent Venables when it comes to producing chaos. And they throw all kinds of different fronts at you. Now, I am interested to see how much tempo OU plays with, right? Last week, we saw them slow it down a little bit because tempo was not your friend, because Iowa State gets lined up pretty much the same way to any formation, snap in and snap out, right? Well, Baylor, they like to mix it up, man. I mean, are you going to be 3 down linemen with kind of an outside linebacker body? Or are you going to be 4 down linemen? They'll get in an odd structure with 3 linemen. They'll get in an even structure with 3 linemen. They'll get in a 4-man front. They'll play 4-man odd. They'll get in a bear look. They'll do all kinds of different things with their linebacker alignments. Like half the time you're like, hey, is Doyle number 5, who's their middle backer? Is he just kind of a defensive lineman?
Yeah.
Because he's playing at the line of scrimmage so much. So all those different looks with the D linemen, the outside linebacker type bodies, and then their inside backers, like it's a lot to process. You have to know what you're doing in each concept against all those different fronts. And that's why, guys like Aranda and Venables are so multiple, because the prep for the game is exhausting. Mm-hmm. So I'm interested to see, number one, how much tempo Lebby thinks. Like, will the tempo force Baylor to keep things a little more simple defensively, right? From the standpoint of just getting lined up. And then number two, when Baylor's allowed to do all this stuff, how does Oklahoma's offensive line handle it? How does Andrew Rame process everything and communicate it across the board to that offensive line and to the backs behind him and to the tight ends? Like, there's a lot going on in Baylor's defense, and it's going to take very clear and thorough communication to sort it all out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a tough physical group, and, the biggest thing is the anchor that they've got right in the middle, right? That's how it all works is you've got to have a great anchor. And, like the closer you get to the football, the better Baylor gets defensively, with their inside backers and Ika right there, gigantic human being that you just cannot move. So yeah, it's going to be a huge test for the offensive line. But, all that being said, I still think our running game, there's some stuff that I really like in our running game that we should be able to do. I like attacking the edges. That's something you've been talking about here the last couple of weeks that they've had a lot of success with.
And that is my recommendation once again, because there's a 360-pound talented nose guard in the middle of their defense. Whether they're in a 4-man front, an even look, or he's odd, he's playing a head-up nose, like, when he's healthy and rested and fresh, buckle up, boy. It's miserable in there for the interior. So, yeah, as far as the run game, continue to attack the edges like you have been, right? I think that the GT counter stuff's been good. The G lead, now Lebby got to it in a couple different ways against Iowa State, and I really liked it. To switch it up a little bit with how he moved Braden Willis, but he got to the same concept and attacked the same area. So I think that all is going to be carried over. I also think the Farouk stuff, right, going wide, the stuff we see to Drake Stoops, right, the speed sweep stuff. Like, I'd rather take our chances in space with their secondary coming up and having to make plays than to try to run it at Ika. I don't think that's a recipe for success, man. No. I really don't. But you know how much I believe in establishing the run. You know how pivotal I think that is when it comes to playing well offensively. I also think this could be kind of similar to what we saw a couple weeks ago against Kansas. They air it out a little bit.
Yeah.
Right, let's make these guys in the back end of Baylor's defense cover. And because the physicality of Baylor's defensive line is really impressive. But I don't think they are a good group of pass rushers. They want to knock the hell at you to the line of scrimmage, play the run, and convert to pass rushers. They do not have a guy where you look at it and go, wow, look at how twitchy he is. They don't do that. They get pressure on quarterbacks, and I think it kind of tells you the story about not having that elite pass rusher. They get pressure by bringing pressure. Mm-hmm. Linebackers, they bring Walcott off the slot quite a bit. You're seeing, 3-man games up front, 4-man games, 5-man games with the linebackers involved, guys twisting all over the place. Like, that's how they generate pressure on the quarterback. If you can pass protect at a high level, and especially if you can anchor in the interior against Ika and keep that pocket, keep that depth nice and clean, then I really think Dillon Gabriel could have a big day.
Yeah.
I really do, but it all comes down to protection. And that goes back to what I said about all the different fronts, all the different pressures that they've got. Communication has to be on point. You have to identify, okay, who are the down line? Which linebackers are the offensive line working to? Who is the running back guy? Right. And Dillon Gabriel's got to understand all of that. Where is he protected? Where is he vulnerable? That's all stuff that they got to digest. So I do think that you got to run the football, obviously, but this could be a game where they throw it around a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I got no problem with that. You know, and I think that we'll do a lot of attacking them probably laterally, you know, and you know, we've seen Lebby do this. He likes to make them run sideline to sideline to start off drives, and you get them worn down a little bit, and you can start going tempo. And with that big guy in the middle, you start making them run a little bit, wear them down, get them stuck in the same personnel grouping where they can't substitute, can't jog them off the field. You can take advantage of that. And a lot of that is, through the passing game. And you hit on a couple of plays downfield, you get that defensive line who's been rushing a couple of times, and now they've got to go down and with tempo start to defend the run. I think that's a good recipe.
I will say, and this is something you talked about after the Iowa State game, I wouldn't mind seeing some more intermediate passing game. Like, get the ball in the hands of your playmakers and make these guys in the back end of Baylor's defense tackle. I think that could be hopefully something we see a little more of. This is something, and I've watched it over and over. We have seen, and it's kind of across all college football, but especially people that are running a similar scheme to what Lebby runs. The wide receiver quick screen is, you know, it's become kind of a staple of the offense, right? Hey, throw it, get 4 or 5 easy yards on first or second down, and it's an efficient play. Buddy, those wide receivers, if we're throwing those, you better buckle up, because Baylor's defensive backs attack those quick screens with physicality unlike we've seen this season. It is a car crash at the line of scrimmage. It's like the guys do not care about their physical well-being. I don't know what they tell these guys. They are flying downhill, trying to murder whoever is trying to block them in the quick screen game. So Braden Willis, Drake Stoops, Jalil Farouk, boys, strap it on tight, buckle up, and just be ready, because those collisions, if we're going to throw those collisions are going to be violent.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've heard me talk about it before, defending it. Like, you punish that play. The blockers on the perimeter and the ball carrier, you punish it. You do not, you want those guys where they're saying, please stop running this play. We don't want any more. So they start to go down easy. The guys on the edge start to open up a little bit quicker to let those DBs through. Yeah, that's tough. Now, and we've seen Lebby do this. You can take advantage of that aggressiveness out there with some of the little double moves. You know, we've seen that. What Braden Willis caught one on a little double move on a fake to the outside. So you've got to block it up, and you've got to slow them down with some other aggressive things that maybe as they're pouring downhill, you can counter that a little bit.
Yeah, and we haven't seen a ton of this. We've barely seen any of it, but Oklahoma State had some success in just some traditional running back screen game.
Mm-hmm.
Right, caught Baylor in some of their pressure stuff, threw some screens to Dom Richardson for some big gains. Maybe that's something we see, because it's been shown that you can get them on that. The last thing I'll say that I'm looking for in this game, I mentioned, hey, throw it around. Let's make them cover. Baylor's secondary is not a bad group. I want to make that clear. This is going to be a game where you look at the wide receivers, you look at Mims, you look at Farouk, you look at Reese, you look at Willis. They're going to have to make competitive catches in tight windows in zone coverage. And that's where, like, you don't see a bunch of plays on tape where Baylor's just getting run by. right? You see quarterbacks having to make, I mean, go watch the West Virginia game. JT Daniels had some throws in that game where I was like, he's the greatest quarterback alive. Oh my God. I mean, just fitting it in to some tight windows and wide receivers going up and making plays. The pass catchers for OU, they're going to have to make some big time plays. Like they have to win those battles.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've got to make the plays, and we have the ability to. Mims seems to be better at home than he has been away from the Palace. He's got to bounce back with a big game. He's going to have to be money. I believe this is going to be an incredibly tight football game. I think it's going to be competitive to the very end, and we have to start making some connections on those deep balls when we have the chance.
And just one more thing. We've talked a lot when Brent Venables got hired. We talked about how the culture was going to be different when it came to physicality. We need to see it.
Yep. This is one of the games that you're talking about, because and they haven't beaten us every time, but they have taken the punch to Oklahoma over the last, 4 or 5 years. They've won the physicality side of it for sure.
So this is one of those games where I'm looking at it. Okay, Jerry Schmidt back, Brent Venables, that grit, that mentality, that intensity. Let's see it reflected by the teams play on the field.
Yep,
so,
I agree.
I'm telling you, Baylor is a violent, physical team. So I'm very interested to see if Oklahoma on both sides of the ball can go and out hit them. This could be one where we look at it's the end of the game. We're going, that was a bloodbath of a game. And that's kind of what you need to say about Oklahoma after this one. Like they got to match that physicality, because even though Baylor's record ain't great, they still have that. They got it.
Yep. No, I agree. It's going to be smash mouth. It is.